The content of this program represents the opinions, research, and observation of the host and his assessment of scientific evidence available at this time. None of the statements, claims, techniques, dietary guidelines, or supplements mentioned in this program have been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. The information contained herein is for educational purposes only. It is not a substitute for standard care provided by medical practitioners. Any application of the advice presented here is at the listener's own discretion or risk. The information should not be used for self-diagnosis or application. Always consult a qualified healthcare professional before beginning any new nutritional, exercise, or lifestyle improvement program. The host and this station disclaim any responsibility for any adverse effects arising from the use or application of information contained in this program. Now broadcasting from his nutritional command center deep in the heart of Victoria, Texas, charging through the swamp of misconceptions, deception, and myths, bringing to you the newest cutting-edge scientific-based nutrition information so you can enjoy whole spectrum health. Here's the paladin of nutrition and whole foods expert, Labron Allen.
From the front lines in the battle against your health freedoms, I'm your host, Labron Allen, and this is Health Alert. Good Saturday morning to you. We have a tremendous amount of health news to go over this morning. But first, I would like to talk about something that, as you listen to this program, is on the minds of millions of individuals across the United States. This program is coming to you in the wake of the terrible massacre that occurred in Newtown, Connecticut, Sandy Hook Elementary School. And boy, has that caused a tremendous amount of sorrow and anger throughout this entire country. And it is quite a horrible, terrible, and there just is not enough adjectives to describe that particular situation. But, as is typical, and as is an unhealthy way of dealing with the situation, the real issue that should be addressed is completely neglected. And so therefore, nothing ever changes for the betterment of the situation. Now, what am I talking about? Well, what I'm referring to is that now everyone is angry over firearms. Apparently, firearms have a mind of their own and go around killing children. Well, in reality, that's ridiculous, is it not? And in every instance of these shootings occurring, which actually are statistically quite rare, contrary to what you hear on the mass media, the corporate media. There have been several of them occurring this year, but they have been hyped tremendously so that they do not go away from your mind. So it sounds like thousands and thousands of people are being murdered by firearms every year. Now, speaking about statistics for just a second, if you look at the statistics of individuals overall, year by year, who are killed in the United States by firearms, it actually is through gang shootings, not homicidal, maniac, mass shootings like occurred this past week. So that's the actual real statistics if you ever take the time to consider it yourself and stop listening to the garbage that the media continually spins out. Now, of course, the idea that the firearms themselves are responsible for these killings is absolutely ludicrous. The problem is that the anger in situations like this are politicized and turned towards the machine that was used, or the tool that was used to create this terrible situation. But instead, it should focus on the individual who actually perpetrated this horrendous crime. It is the individual that is to blame for these murders, for these killings. Now, this will obviously be politically used to wrench firearms, legally owned firearms, from law-abiding citizens. But what I want to bring to your attention is the way in which it is done. And the reason that I want to do this is to actually use this situation as an illustration to how you also lose your health freedoms. The same techniques, the same psychological twistings are used to eradicate, to eliminate the health freedoms that you actually have a right to as an individual. So what am I referring to? Well, first, the media, the corporate government uses names, words, to twist things in your mind. Now, these words turn something that is illegal, turn something that is good and wholesome, either into a terrible thing, or the other way of doing it is that they take a terrible thing and twist it into something that sounds marvelous. So what do I mean? Well, for example, let's first take natural remedies, herbs. Oh my goodness, when I just say that word, now maybe not as much as to this listening audience, because I'm assuming that as you listen, or because you are listening to this program, you may be a person who uses natural health care, at least on a semi-regular basis. But for the average individual, when they hear herb, what is the first thing that will often occur? Just kind of a semi-conscious thought. Oh, could be dangerous. Could be dangerous. Now, how did that occur? How did the thinking of herbs equal could be dangerous? Well, it is through programming over and over and over, through the media, through your own medical personnel. Oh, what herbs are you taking before such and such? Or, you have this rash. Could be the herbs you're taking, supplements you're taking, etc., etc. And so through years, through decades of that, you have now been programmed as having that semi-conscious knee-jerk reaction with herbal remedies. Or really any supplement. Oh, taking a vitamin, that could be dangerous. Those aren't approved by the FDA, you know. They could be very unsafe. Of course, the hundreds of thousands, even millions over the years of people who have died through properly approved medications, well, that's fine because they're FDA approved. Do you understand how it is psychologically twisted in your mind? The first step to getting rid of this issue, and let me use the word of programming. You have been programmed. The first step of getting rid of the programming is to become aware of how it is done. So let me shift gears now back into the firearm issue. Now, the main term that has been used for these terrible firearms that were used as the tools to kill these individuals, these children and adults, has been for years termed as an assault weapon. More recently, they're using a new term called military style. Now, you understand that style means how it looks. It looks like a military weapon. It is not a military weapon. It looks like a military weapon. Okay, so that's the newest term, military style. Like the suit is a new style. It has to do with the way it looks, not that it is. So, the two terms once again are assault weapons and military style. Now, let's look at the term assault weapons. First of all, there is absolutely no such thing as an assault weapon. Did you know that? And you're probably already disagreeing. Oh, of course there is assault weapons. What are you talking about? That's what they use in the military. No, they do not. They do not use assault weapons in the military. There are not assault weapons. There are two categories of firearms. The first category is military weapons. That is the first category. Military weapons. Weapons that are produced specifically for use in war. The second category of firearms are civilian weapons. Once again, there are two categories: military firearms, civilian firearms. Now, civilian firearms can be in the style of military firearms, but they are not a military firearm. What is the difference? Well, I'll tell you the difference. In a military firearm, the way that that firearm works is usually what's termed as select fire. So what does that mean? Well, that means that you can select if you wish to have semi-auto. Now, let me explain semi-auto for those who do not know what it means. It means that you have one press of the trigger and one round or cartridge fires. So with each press of the trigger, one round fires. That is semi-automatic, hence the term semi. Now, in the select fire weapon, you can also have a 3-round burst, which means that one press of the trigger, 3 rounds or 3 cartridges are fired. The next is fully automatic fire, which means with one press of the trigger, you can have hundreds of rounds automatically fired off. Many firearms that are fully automatic, military weapons, have 900 rounds a minute or more with one press of the trigger. Those are military firearms. They are not civilian firearms. And within the United States, in order to get a fully automatic weapon, there are several things that happen. One, you have to go through months and months, literally 6 to 8, maybe even longer, months of paperwork with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, known as the BATFE. Now, within that, you also have to have a letter of approval from a police officer, oftentimes chief of police, saying that you're a wonderful citizen, that you have a clean background, and that he thinks that you're a marvelous person, along with that paperwork. That stuff, getting that letter of approval and the paperwork, is very difficult to begin with. Then you have to pay a special tax, which is $200. And then you have to be willing to pay for that fully automatic weapon. Well, what do I mean by that? I mean that a fully automatic weapon that is legal, that you've gone through all the paperwork to do, that you've been thoroughly background checked by the FBI and the BATFE, costs you at least $12, $15, and even upwards of $20,000 in order to purchase. That's right, you heard that correctly, and that is correct. $12,000 to $20,000 per firearm. So that is what it takes to have a fully automatic firearm. Now, the people who do not go through all of that are buying firearms in the black market and are known as criminals. Now, do you think any kind of gun law will stop that? Of course not. There are thousands of gun laws that are supposed to stop that, and it doesn't. Happens every day, all the time. Now, civilian firearms within the United States are only semi-automatic, which again means one press of the trigger, one cartridge fired, one bullet fired with every press of the trigger. So, that is the commonly available firearm within the United States. You could have bought that in any sporting goods store, firearms dealer, whatever the case may be. After background checks, okay? So you have to fill out a form. It's called a 4473 form, and you have to certify that you aren't mentally disabled, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. These are all these questions. You sign it, and then there's an FBI background check that's done before the purchase of the weapon, and then that form is sent off into the BATFE, so they have record of that sale and the serial number of the firearm with the individual who purchased it. And so they are able to track and record what is being done, and if those answers are legitimate or not. And these laws have been enacted for many years now. So it is ridiculous to say, hey, there's not enough laws to control the possession, sale of these tools. Because that isn't the focus. That focus has already been done. It has failed. So therefore, the focus should be on the perpetrator, the person who chooses to do these types of things. Well, they say, oh, mental illness. Well, now there is information coming out. It hasn't been verified yet, but there's information coming out that this individual who did do these shootings was on psychotropic medications. Is that any big surprise? Did you know that in all verified mass shootings to date, now again, this most recent one is not verified yet, but to all verified mass shootings internationally to date, that every one of them has been with a perpetrator or perpetrators on psychotropic medications. Now you see, medications alter how the mind works. It alters your judgment. In my opinion, you're still responsible for it, but it does alter it, and it tends to alter it in a detrimental, horrible way. That scenario is what should be looked at. That scenario is what is to truly be blamed. On with the health news now. Speaking about mind-altering medications, psychotropic medications, here is the headline: popular acne drug linked to causing mental health problems, yet wildly overprescribed. What acne drug is this? Well, Accutane. Accutane. Do you have a child taking or using Accutane? Have you or are you using Accutane? If so, listen up. Accutane is being increasingly linked to causing depression, suicidal tendencies, and even sexual identity confusion among people who take it. This connection has prompted a cohort of doctors and concerned citizens to call for serious action to be taken against the drug, which has been linked to numerous suicides in recent years. Apparently, there have been strings of suicides with young people who have used Accutane. 18-year-old Melissa Martin Hughes, for example, reportedly hanged herself in 2010 after spiraling into severe depression following an intense regimen of Accutane. 28-year-old Angela Lee willfully stepped in front of a train after being mentally raped by the side effects of Accutane. 24-year-old Jesse Jones in 2011 was found dead at the bottom of a cliff. Based on the evidence gathered following the young man's death, it became clear that Jesse suffered severe mental side effects as the result of taking Accutane. Side effects that he himself documented privately as causing him to completely lose interest in women, which was apparently very distressing for him. He also wrote in an email that was never sent to his parents that Accutane he had found changed the way his mind and body worked. So that is incredible. That is something to know. That is something to blame. Next headline: restaurant dishwashing has no effect on contagious stomach virus. Goes on to say that according to a study conducted by researchers from Ohio State University and published in the journal PLOS One, current dishwashing practices in restaurants are completely inadequate for preventing the spread of one of the most common agents of foodborne illness. Researcher Melvin Pascal had this to say: "We know that when public food establishments follow the cleaning protocols, they do a very good job at getting rid of bacteria. Now we can see that the protocols are less effective at removing and killing viruses. And this may explain why there are still so many illnesses caused by cross-contaminated food." Specifically, the study focused on the spread of norovirus, a virus responsible for the majority of gastroenteritis epidemics in the United States and 90% of the non-bacterial gastroenteritis outbreaks. This virus happens to be highly contagious, and it's well known for causing stomach flu outbreaks on cruise ships and in other closed settings. Actually, it's responsible for approximately 91,000 emergency room visits each year, as well as 23,000 hospitalizations of children under the age of 5 for severe diarrhea. Well, that's it. That's it. We should ban norovirus. That's what should be done. Or we should ban restaurants. That's actually a better idea. Next headline: infant formula kills infants through cytotoxicity. What's this? Listen up. Now, if you remember, I have talked about infant formulas quite a bit over the course of this program. One of the main things about infant formulas is that at least 42% of what is contained in that infant formula is sugar and or high fructose corn syrup. It is the highest concentrated substance within most infant formulas. This study, conducted by researchers from the University of California, San Diego, and published in the Journal of Pediatrics Research, found that infant formula has been implicated as possibly a major cause of death and premature newborns. Scientists have found that premature infants fed formula are significantly more likely to develop an often fatal condition known as necrotizing enterocolitis than those fed breast milk. Necrotizing enterocolitis is the most common gastrointestinal disease to cause death in premature infants, but its underlying causes have been largely unknown. Now, in a study funded by the National Institutes of Health, researchers used pancreatic enzymes or intestinal fluid to digest breast milk in 9 different infant formulas that are marketed for preterm and full-term infants. They tested the digested milk and formula for levels of free fatty acids, then added the fatty acids to cells known to be involved in necrotizing enterocolitis. The cells tested were those lining the intestines, or the epithelial lining, those lining the blood vessels, endothelial, and neutrophils, a variety of white blood cells. That is one of the first cell types to respond to trauma-induced inflammation. Across the board, formula digestion produced free fatty acids that killed all 3 types of cells, whereas breast milk digestion produced little or no cell death. For example, between 47 and 99% of the neutrophils died when exposed to digested infant formula, but only 6% of the neutrophils died when exposed to digested breast milk. In some cases, the digested infant formula caused cell death in fewer than 5 minutes. Now, what does that mean to you? What is the first thing that you want to do for your baby? Well, protect them against infection, right? You want them to be strong. If someone's sick, you do not want them around your infant, especially if they're premature. Respiratory illness is a serious, potentially fatal situation in those cases. So what this is saying is that if these premature infants are fed infant formula, that the immune cells responsible for protecting your baby's body, your baby's respiratory system, are killed off upwards of minimally 50% to upwards of 100 or at least 99% within 5 minutes. Within 5 minutes. Whereas if they are breastfed, only 6% of those same immune cells are killed off. Now, what that study doesn't go on to say is that your breast milk, the baby's mother's breast milk, actually also increases. It has certain fatty acids that improve immune function as well. So not only do they kill off far less, but they also supply to your baby the things it needs to have a strong immune system. Well, this next headline is about fertility. One of the most common things I see is fertility problems across the board in both genders. This is about men's sperm counts in France. Researchers from France conducted their study specifically on French men aged 18 to 70 years of age, tracking average sperm counts across the country between the years of 1989 and 2005. According to their findings, sperm counts among all French men in this age range dropped by about 1.9% per year on average, and by 32.3% on average over the course of the entire 16-year period. 32.3% in 16 years. The number of normally shaped sperm in men also dropped by an astounding 33.4% during the study period. Researchers commented, to our knowledge, this is the first study concluding a severe and general decrease in sperm concentration and morphology at the scale of a whole country over a substantial period. This constitutes a serious public health warning. Based on research figures, average sperm concentrations dropped from 73.6 million per milliliter among 35-year-old men in 1989 to 49.9 million per milliliter among the same age group in 2005. That is a disastrous situation. Now, according to researchers, in the U.S., sperm counts have been on the decline for more than 50 years. At the heart of it is bisphenol A, also known as BPA, and other plastic chemicals, pesticides, and herbicide residues on conventional foods, which we have talked about at length, fluoride in a water supply, radiation-emitting mobile phones and laptops, pharmaceutical drugs, soy-based ingredients that are in everything. These and really many other factors are responsible for the massive decline in male fertility internationally. Now, this next bit of news is actually just some interesting pharmaceutical company facts. Some of you may already know a few of these, but I doubt any of you know all of them. Some of them were a surprise to me. This is looking at the connection of pharmaceutical companies and street drugs. Most individuals think that street drugs are really an entirely different class than prescription drugs, but that is not the case. Also, I doubt that you would believe that pharmaceutical companies actually manufacture and sell street drugs. Did you know that? Pharmaceutical companies manufacture and sell street drugs. Would you believe that? Well, here's 7 facts that you probably are not aware of. Number 1, heroin. Heroin was launched as a medicine by Felix Hoffmann, who was actually an employee of Bayer, as in Bayer aspirin. In fact, Felix Hoffmann was the inventor of aspirin, and he launched heroin literally a few days after the patent of aspirin. Bayer Medicine immediately applied for a trademark on the term heroin. Then what did they do? Well, they began marketing the drug as a cure for morphine addiction. It is an opiate, duh. It was also marketed as cough syrup for children. Yes, you heard that correctly. Bayer, the pharmaceutical company, marketed heroin as cough syrup for children. Fact number 2, Parke-Davis, which actually is a subsidiary of Pfizer, promoted and sold cocaine. In fact, it even produced a cocaine injection kit, which was complete with a syringe for shooting up. If you want to see a picture of that kit, you can go to www.naturalnews.com and look up Parke-Davis injection, and you will find an actual picture of the complete kit for shooting up in cocaine as created by Parke-Davis, also known as Pfizer. Fact number 3, a subsidiary of Novartis, Sandoz Laboratories, introduced the world to none other than LSD in 1938. They did it by marketing it as a psychiatric drug. Did you hear that? As a psychiatric drug, LSD. Now, do you think that the psychotropic medications that these shooters, killers, murderers have been on, that have done these mass shootings, is much different? It isn't. For example, Prozac is very similar to LSD. just as an example. Anyway, moving on, Novartis marketed it as a psychiatric drug named Delsid. And it happens to be that this same drug company, Novartis, also created saccharin, which we know is the artificial sweetener that is also a neurotoxin. Fact number 4. The drug giant Merck pioneered the commercial manufacture of morphine from opium and was a heavy pusher and marketer of cocaine as well. Merck has also patented MDMA. What is that, you ask? Well, it's more commonly known as ecstasy. That's right, Merck patented ecstasy. After World War II, Merck also began producing pesticides and food preservatives. Isn't that wonderful? Now, I'm sure many of you are familiar with the drug Ritalin. It's not as common today, but it's still used. It is used for hyperactive children. Now, do you know what that actually is? It is a chemical amphetamine. What it really is very similar to methamphetamine. Okay? And so this drug is prescribed to millions of school children across the United States to treat a quote-unquote brain chemistry condition that has no form of testing. And don't forget that this chemical amphetamine is marketed and invented by drug companies. Now, in the 1930s, drug companies marketed amphetamines as over-the-counter inhaler medicines for treating nasal congestion. Yes, you heard that right. Amphetamines for nasal congestion. Also, tablet amphetamines were also widely available and frequently abused by students, truck drivers, and other groups. Meth was originally synthesized by chemists and later refined by drug companies, which is how Ritalin came into existence. During World War II, meth was actually prescribed to soldiers by the U.S., German, and Japanese militaries. In fact, Hitler himself was known as a meth head by his very own staff. And the problem was that by the end of the war, there were millions of military personnel which were addicted to methamphetamines. So there is your facts about the pharmaceutical creation and pushing of illegal street drugs. Well, that's it for this morning, folks. I hope that I gave you some things to think about. Correlations between what you see in the media, how the media works, how the media programs individuals who are unaware. And that's the only way that it works. That programming, the way of using neurolinguistics, it is only effective if you are unaware of it. So I hope at the very least, maybe, the information I've given you this morning will help you to be aware of things. Looking at the direction that this world is going, I hope that you see that having your health, having your mental powers and faculties is more important now than ever before. I cannot stress to you enough that with my 10 years of working in the natural health care profession, that nutrition response testing and a health improvement program are by far the very best tools that I have found to create as much optimal health as is possible for you and your family. The steps to getting on a health improvement program is first finding out if you are a nutrition response testing case or not. To do that, the easiest way is to come to one of our free health seminars. Our next free health seminars will be held on Tuesday, January the 8th. Tuesday, January the 8th. Its title is Weight Loss and Detoxification. The step-by-step program that will help you lose an average of 12 pounds in 3 weeks and feel better than ever. Many people, after the first year, they've resolved that they're going to clean up their life. They're going to lose weight from the holiday pounds that they chose to put on. And this free health seminar will go into specifics of how you can actually, on average, lose 12 pounds and literally improve your health in just 21 days. That seminar, totally free, is on Tuesday evening, January the 8th at 7 p.m. The location will be at the Natural Health Clinic, 3908 North John Stockbauer, Suite C, as in cat. I recommend that if you don't want to stand, that you RSVP ASAP. You do that by calling area code 361-575-4683 and telling Tanya, who is our front desk girl, that you want to RSVP for the next free health seminar. Do you have comments about this show? Do you have questions that you would like to hear answered on this show? Well, you can do that by sending me an email. I will get it personally. That email is radiocomments@healthimprovementprograms.com. Once again, that email is radiocomments@healthimprovementprograms.com. Thanks for listening, folks. Until next week, listen to what's actually being said with perhaps more knowledge. Make choices for yourself. Do not be led by others. I'm your host, Leigh Brunellen. This is Health Alert.